Hello everybody, welcome back to my sunroom. On this first day of November, I can't believe it's already November 2021, and this is my beautiful, huge red Thanksgiving cactus. This was given to me by a friend, and it was about a third of the size that it is right now, about 3 years ago. As you all know, I keep it here in my sunroom. It is now taking up an entire city block here in my sunroom. I can't hardly move without brushing up against it. And I measured it today. This is 3.5 feet across. Yes. So I thought I would just give you some general care tips on Thanksgiving cacti. Right now is the time when all kinds of these plants are hitting the grocery stores and the garden centers. And this time of the year, I get more questions about Thanksgiving cactus care than anything. So let me just give you some quick tips and what to expect with these plants. As you all know, I started growing these plants about 5 years ago. I went to Kroger, I picked up 3 different colors. I was so excited I was going to decorate my Thanksgiving dinner table with these cacti. And I was very much disappointed because 3 days later, all of the buds and all of the blooms fell off of my plant. So I went in search of information about them, and I found out that once the buds set, if you move them, they'll all fall off. So you can imagine they go from the nursery where they're grown and they're in bud or in bloom or both. They hit the grocery store and everybody is just enamored with them. I mean, I've seen the crowd around these beautiful plants when they're in full bloom. You take them home. It's usually pretty cold outside. At least it is around here in November. But you're moving them from one place to another. You get them home and all of a sudden, boom, everything just drops off the plant. And you think that you're not a good Thanksgiving cactus grower, which is not true. That is just what happens with these plants. Right now, this plant is full of buds. You can see some of the larger buds down at the bottom of the plant right in here. I've got very large buds, I've got small buds, and everything in between. I've got 3 buds on some segments of this plant. If I were to move this plant at this point, all of the buds and blooms would drop off the plant and it would not bloom. So if you're buying a plant new this year from the grocery store or your garden center, then know that you might have a few buds or blooms that stay on the plant, but your best bet is to take really good care of this throughout the year and expect it to bloom next year. And if you take care of it, it will. These are really easy to get to bloom in most areas of the world. The best piece of advice I can give you at this point in the year is wherever your Christmas or your Thanksgiving cactus is right now, you need to leave it there. If it hasn't set buds yet, then you can move it to the point where you want it to bloom. But if it's like this, if it's got buds all over it, just don't move it. Now, saying that, I do turn this one because it's going to bloom. It's going to bloom probably here first. And then there's going to be more buds come out on the left side of this plant. And so I will turn it very gently. I'm not going to pick it up and put it down. I can't because it's too big. But I'm going to very gently just slide the pot right where it is. That's not going to disturb it. But if you pick it up and let's say I take it in the house into another room, I run the risk of all the buds and all the blooms falling off the plant. So once the buds set on your plant, just leave it there. Can you turn it in the very same position where it is right now? Certainly you can. But if you want them to bloom as beautifully as possible, then you leave them right where they are when the buds set. Another question that I get asked really often about these is, do you go on some type of a schedule on these? About 5 years ago, I did a video where each month you do something a little bit different with them that mimics their natural habitat. And I've heard back from some of you that that really works for you. If that works for you, then that means that probably you do need to follow that schedule from month to month. But here in East Tennessee, we get 4 very distinct seasons. And I believe that what is causing mine to bloom on time is that late September, it gets dark here very suddenly, much earlier than it did just even the middle of September, and it gets much cooler. And that sudden drop in temperature and the reduced amount of light, it triggers these to bloom. So if you go on a schedule and yours blooms, then just keep doing that. You just do with them whatever it takes to get them to bloom. If you happen to be looking for that schedule, I'm going to place a link to my video where I go through that month by month in the description box below. And several of you have just told me that that is very helpful with your growing. So I'm glad that that is useful to you all. So as this continues to bud out, bloom out, you know that I'm going to keep you all posted on this gorgeous plant. I have nicknamed this Big Red because it is huge. I did not get it repotted, by the way. My husband and I were looking at this back in the spring, and he said, how in the world are you going to repot this? And I really don't know. So I'm thinking about it. I'm going to share some more information about my thought process on keeping it in this smaller pot for as long as I possibly can. That's another thing. You don't want to over pot these. When you over pot them, they won't bloom. They're like African violets in the way that when they're root bound, they bloom. When you give them a huge pot, they just don't bloom as well. So this one does not look like it is unhappy about being in this small pot at all. And I hope that this video just really helped you all, gave you all some tips and some knowledge about the reason why when you bring these home from the grocery store or, you know, from your garden center, why in the world am I losing all these buds and blooms? And I will continue to do updates on this one. It blooms for a very long time. There will be blooms on this plant from the middle of November until usually the middle of March. So before I let you all go, I would love to say the blessing over you and your families. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you and your families his peace. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will talk to you next time.